So, Bill, what's the purpose of this organisation?
Well, Ros, the Chinese steel industry for many years has fantasised about coming up with a way to gain more pricing leverage over the big Australian iron ore exporters, and this appears to be the main idea behind this new state-owned body. It's called China Minerals Resources Group. It basically has a very wide remit to do all sorts of things, overseas exploration, for all sorts of mining activities except for coal. But the key thing is one of the main reasons they're establishing this body is to try and coordinate the buying of iron ore and the distribution of that iron ore in China. So what does this mean? Well, instead of having a couple of thousand Chinese steel mills all dealing directly with Australian exporters, all in a very competitive market, in theory, what the Chinese are trying to do is to band together at least some of those state-owned steel mills, both big and small, and get their orders together so that they can go to the Australian miners like BHP, Rio and Fortescue and make these huge bulk orders. Instead of the Australians being able to shop around their shipments, they can only deal with one customer, this giant Chinese government body. And what ideally for the Chinese they'd be able to do would be to lock in long-term contracts for huge orders and demand steep discounts. Ros, that's the idea, in theory, that the Chinese government is trying to push.
So how have local miners reacted to this?
Not as worried as you might think. So yesterday a senior BHP executive, David Lamonti, was speaking at a forum in Melbourne. He said BHP is not too worried about this. He said according to history, it shows that the Chinese government has tried to do similar initiatives in the past, tried to find ways to give the Chinese customers in the steel industry more sway over global iron ore prices, and it's just a very difficult thing to do. One mining commentator described this initiative as like trying to herd cats. Another one said that in reality the Chinese steel industry is composed of a couple of thousand companies, both big and small. They're all in cutthroat competition with each other. So the idea that these personal business relationships that have built up between individual steel mills and Australian exporters, the idea that those relationships can be overridden and instead all the orders will have to go through a central body. On paper it might sound good, but it will actually be a very difficult thing for the Chinese side to implement.
And another export, Bill, coal may be heading back to China soon?
Yeah, Ros, coal is not worth anything near as much as iron ore to Australia, but at its peak before the Chinese imposed a political ban on the export, it was raking in about $13 to $14 billion a year for Australia. There are hints from the Chinese state media that because relations between the two countries are slightly improving, that might be enough for the Chinese to do away with that ban on coal. In reality, though, a lot of analysts say that China has ramped up its domestic production of coal. It's also scaling down its use of coal. That's a long-term trend. So even if Australian coal shipments do return to China, they are unlikely to go back with the same volumes that we once saw prior to that ban.
Bill, thank you.